What is up guys, Rajtronic here and welcome back to the Scrapyard. We're back for another round of card reviews. Apologies, I've been a little bit late, but you know, life gets in the way. Don't forget, if you're liking these videos and enjoying them, hit the like button, hit the subscribe. I really appreciate your comments down below. Feel free to disagree with me. Let's get into the cards. First up, we've got NL Conquer, the monster card. 7 strength, 4 provision. It's got the keyword Veil, meaning it can't be targeted for buffs or debuffs, which is great. Deploy, destroy self. But, which is ridiculous, but if you playing Devotion, meaning all the cards in your deck are monster cards, you cancel the deploy ability. I think this is an incredible card because it's only going to go in Devotion decks. That's why I can sort of confidently give it like 5 pieces of scrap. I think it's cheap, easy, big unit that will go in every Devotion deck. Next up, we have a 4 strength, 5 provision Skellige unit on Crate Raiders. Veteran, so the veteran keyword means it gets +1 strength every round, meaning by round 3 this will be a 4 + 1.
I'm learning.
This will be a 6 strength unit for 5 provision. It has order, damage a unit by 2, which is great, and then Bloodthirst, meaning if there are 3 damaged enemy units on the board, it gains Zeal, meaning you can do the 2 damage almost immediately. I think this is a solid low cost unit. I don't think it does anything special. I'm going to give it 3 pieces of scrap. Next up, we have a Legendary Monsters card, 6 strength, 11 provisions, Oberon King. Its deploy ability is spawn and play a random bronze wild hunt unit, and at the start of the round while in hand or deck transform. So this is the legendary evolving card for monsters. Playing a random wild hunt unit is a little bit dodgy. I don't think it's great in its first form. Next form, when you keep it for the next round, it's Oberon Invader. Deploy, create, and play a Bronze Wild Hunt unit, meaning you're going to get 3 options to pick from Wild Hunt units. And then Devotion, again, if it's just a monsters deck you're running, at the start of the round, while in hand or deck, transform. Final form is you get Oberon Conqueror with absolutely sweet art, with a decapitated unicorn. You have Veil, meaning can't be targeted by buffs or debuffs. Deploy, create, and play a Bronze Wild Hunt unit, and then whenever you play a Wild Hunt unit, boost it by 1. I'm not convinced this is a great card. I think this is pretty underwhelming for the by comparison to some of the other evolving cards. I don't think any of the Wild Hunt cards are that impressive yet. I could be wrong, so that's why I'm only going to give it 3 pieces of scrap. Next up is Legendary Skellige spell. It's Blood Eagle, which is horrifying if you actually look at the art. It's got our keyword Echo, meaning when you play it in the first round, it will come back to your hand in the second round and it gets doomed, so you can play it twice. I love that keyword Echo, by the way. Damage an enemy unit by 2, then play a warrior from your deck with 8 provision cost or less, which is pretty good. You get to pull warriors, some deck thinning is always good. Death Blow, so if you actually kill the unit that you're targeting with that 2 damage, you play a warrior from your deck instead, so you remove the 8 provision limit, meaning you can just pull any warrior from your deck. And then Bloodthirst 3, meaning if there's 3 damaged units on the board, you always trigger the Death Blow ability. I think this is a great card. I think it's hard enough to pull off. 2 damage is quite low, so I'm going to give it 4 pieces of scrap, but I still think it's a really good card. Some of the coolest artwork we've seen so far, in my opinion. This absolute badass is a 5 strength, 5 provision Drummond Berserker. At the end of your turn, damage self and a random enemy unit by 1. And then Berserk 2, meaning when you get down to 2 health, transform into a Bear Abomination, which is a 6 strength creature, if I'm correct. So not only can you do 3 damage over time to your opponent, you then get a 6 strength unit. I think this unit is going to be good, but not great. I'm going to give it 3 pieces of scrap. Drummond Villager, 4 strength, 4 provision. Deploy, give bleeding 4 to the unit to the right, then give bleeding 4 to an enemy unit. I think this is not a good card on its own, perhaps in combo with other deck, but as a standalone card, I'm going to give it 2 pieces of scrap. Next up, we have Tearshock Invader. This art is wrong. Inexplicably, again, they've made a mistake in what they have released. This is supposed to be a 5 strength, 4 provision unit, which makes it so much better. Tearshock Invader, Veil, can't be targeted obviously, and also has the veteran keyword, meaning you get stronger every round, which means by round 3 it will be a 7 strength unit for 5 provisions. I think this is a solid unit that's going to go in pretty much any Skellige deck, so I'm going to give it 4 pieces of scrap. Next up, we have Eredin Break Glass. That's how I read it, Eredin Break Glass. I don't know. 5 strength, 10 provision, quite weak. Deploy, spawn Frost on an enemy row for 2 turns. I like the use of weather effects being brought back into the game. And then Dominance, meaning if you have the highest strength unit on the board, you increase damage dealt by Frost by 1, which is not a bad card. I don't think it's overwhelming. I think it's decent. Frost is not a great row effect. It's okay, but I still think this is a solid card, so its strength is pretty low. I'm going to give it 4 pieces of scrap. Next up is Forest Protector, 5 strength, 11 provisions, so quite expensive for a weak-ish unit. Forest Protector says deploy, play a bronze nature from your graveyard. Again, I'm assuming they meant to say play a bronze nature card from your graveyard. What is up with the spell checks on this company? I don't.
Hi, Super Nintendo Chalmers!
This is not a great card. I think this is a 3 pieces of scrap card. The bronze nature cards, not great. Pretty weak for a pretty high provision card cost. Next up we have the Skellige Evolving Unit. It's 6 strength, 11 provision, Herald on Crate. Deploy, play a bronze warrior from your graveyard and damage it by 2. At the start of the round, while in hand or deck, you get to transform. It transforms into Herald Warmonger, and you deploy, play a bronze warrior from your graveyard, so you don't damage it by 2 this round. Devotion, if you're only running Skellige units, at the start of the round while in the hand or deck, transform. And fun piece of trivia, if you notice in the background, you'll see the on-crate Raider that I reviewed previously. And lastly, the final evolution is Harald the Cripple. Veil, again, you can't target it or can't be debuffed. Deploy, play a bronze warrior from your graveyard. Whenever you play a warrior, damage a random enemy unit by 1, ignoring its armor. I think this is incredible. I think this is a 5 piece of scrap card. I think this is really, really cool. Next up, we have Herkia Drummond, 4 strength, 7 provision, Skellige card with 1 armor. It's got Veil, meaning it can't be targeted. It's got Zeal, Order on the melee row, so if you're playing the card on the melee row, split 3 damage randomly between enemy units on a row. At the end of your turn, if Order is not used, damage a random enemy unit by 1. So if you don't want to use its power, it just pings for 1 damage. I think this is a solid card. I'm going to give it 4 pieces of scrap. Next up is a Syndicate unit, Lieutenant von Hurst, 4 strength with 1 armor for 8 provision. Horde, 5 at the end of your turn, spawn a Firesworn Zealot in this row. So if you've got 5 coins, you spawn a Firesworn Zealot. Fee, you spend one of those coins to transform a Firesworn Zealot into a Flaming Rose Footman. We reviewed them in the previous video, 3 strength with 1 armor. Solid card. I think it's pretty good. It's going to go in a lot of Syndicate decks. It's not too expensive, so I'm going to give it 4 pieces of scrap. Next up, another Syndicate card, a Lonely Champion, 4 strength, 2 armor, which is solid. 4 provisions. I like the value there. Immunity, meaning it can't be targeted as well. Deploy, destroy all Firesworn tokens in this row, then boost self by some of their power. I think this is a really good card, even if you don't want to kill the Firesworn tokens. I think this is really, really good. So I'm going to give it 4 pieces of scrap. Roderick the Wet is a Syndicate unit, 4 strength with 1 armor, 7 provision. It's got Veil, so it can't be targeted. It's got Zeal, Order, so put it in the melee row. It spawns a Flaming Rose Footman in this row. At the end of your turn, if Order is not used, gain a coin. So I like this. If you don't want to use the Order, you can still have the benefit. So I'm going to give it 4 pieces of scrap. Next up, we have got Red Riders. Choose 1, spawn Frost on an enemy row for 4 turns. Spawn Frost on both enemy rows for 2 turns. I'm not a massive fan of these weather effects. I don't think they're that impactful to the game. Maybe we'll see more cards that make them better, but so far I'm going to give this 2 pieces of scrap. War of Clans is a Skellige spell for 5 provision. Damage an enemy unit by 2. Death Blow, play a 4 provision cost warrior from your graveyard and give it Doomed. Devotion, always trigger Death Blow. I think damaging and Death Blow a unit by 2 is going to be pretty hard to pull off. Obviously putting it in a Devotion deck is going to make this card so much better, so I'm going to give it 3 pieces of scrap. Wild Hunt Bruiser, 5 strength, 1 armor for 5 provision. Cool art. I like the theme here. Deploy, move an enemy unit to the other row. If target moves to a row affected by frost, damage it by 2. As a standalone card, I think this card is just decent. 5 strength, 1 armor for 5 provision. The deployability is an added bonus, so I'm going to give it 4 pieces of scrap. Thanks very much for watching, guys. I appreciate you stopping by. Don't forget to hit the like and subscribe. I'm also streaming to Twitch most days, so feel free to stop by there. Bye.